Hi, welcome back, or welcome for the first time. I'm Roger, and let's talk about some books. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that I plan to read in January, the first of which is The Girl in the Tower and The Winter of the Witch by Katherine Arden. So these are books 2 and 3 in the Winter Night trilogy. So since they are books 2 and 3 in a trilogy, I obviously can't say too much about their plots specifically, but they do follow The Bear and the Nightingale, by the same author, which was one of my surprise reads at the end of last year. I absolutely fell in love with this world. If you love kind of a more aged up adult Disney version where it has all of those kind of fantasy vibes with fairy tale elements, I think that you would really enjoy this series. It has to do with Russian mythology and folklore, where if you read the afterwords of these books, you can see that Katherine Arden actually did a whole bunch of research to be as accurate as possible in a fictional tale, really living up to those different fairy tales and mythology and different creatures present in Russian folklore. And I think she did a wonderful job. It's a tale about a little girl, Vasilisa Petrovna, which all of the names in this book, by the way, are super fun to say with a very thick, like Bond villain kind of accent, which is kind of how I read it in my mind. So every time I read something, it was like, oh, Vasilisa Petrovna. And it just made the book so much more fun. And an aside, my husband calls her Vaselina, but that's neither here nor there. But you are definitely sleeping on the Winter Night trilogy if you haven't started it yet. It's the perfect time of year to check it out. It has all of those nice, cold, chilly, wintry vibes with that wonderful fairy tale setting about a girl trying to keep the Russian folklore and creatures alive while they are slowly fading due to the rise of Christianity. I don't really want to say more than that because it's definitely one of those books that you really want to go into knowing as little as possible and just enjoy the magical adventure. The next 2 books I'm trying to read, as I'm trying to kind of wrap up different series this year, are the next 2 books in the Peculiar Children series by Ransom. I read books 1 through 3 last year, so that's Miss Peregrines' Home for Peculiar Children, Hollow City, and Library of Souls. And so this month I'm trying to read the next 2 installments in that series. So that's A Map of Days and A Conference of the Birds. I can't, again, say too much. This is a follow-up trilogy. So the first 3 books were written as a separate entity. And so they have their kind of own story arc that ends on a pseudo cliffhanger. And then we then pick up immediately where the 3rd book left off. So if you don't know already, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is the first book, which has a movie made that I actually thought was really wonderful and very much got me into wanting to read the books, along with the constant pushing of Jesse the reader, who constantly says that this is his favorite series of all time, and so I wanted to check it out. It's the story of a young boy, Jacob, who discovers that he has peculiar things about him that he didn't know after the death of a loved one. And then we then follow his journey as he understands what his abilities can do and his quest to save this peculiar world that he has recently discovered. It is very much fun. It is more of a middle grade or young adult feeling kind of book. So if that's not your cup of tea, you may want to skip out on this. But if you want a book that has kind of some spooky vibes, almost kind of a more middle grader X-Men, but leaning more into like if Tim Burton wrote X-Men, that's kind of how I would describe Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. So if that sounds good to you, you should definitely pick it up along with me. The next book I'm reading this month is my audiobook of the month, and so I'm working my way through A Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan, book 11 of The Wheel of Time. The journey through the Wheel of Time has been very much up and down, like for most people. I really loved the first 5 books. Then we hit books 6 and 7, and I still enjoyed them, but it definitely slowed down a lot for me. And then books 8, 9, and 10, which are that infamous slog, they definitely lived up to their reputation of those books. Book 9 was the best. Book 8 was kind of in the middle. And book 10 was just, oh my goodness. If you want to see me rant a little bit more about that, you can watch my December wrap-up. But good gracious, that's all I'll say about that book. But I hear that book 11, A Knife of Dreams, which unfortunately is the final book that Robert Jordan himself wrote before passing away, I hear that it really starts to ramp back up and get into those plot points that we all fell in love with in earlier books. And so I'm really hoping that this book picks up the pace so that I can get back into loving the story like I did previously. Those are the main 5 books that I really want to do my best to finish this month, as I did try to push myself a little bit more than usual, and I set a Goodreads goal this year. I know this is the year of everybody throwing out Goodreads and saying that they're not going to set any kind of goals and take off all the pressure, but since I am new, I want to see if I can push myself and maybe read a little bit more than I do normally. Obviously, it's kind of up and down because I am in graduate school, and so the amount of time that I have free for reading kind of varies from month to month, but the goal currently is to read 5 books per month minimum. If I get to all 5 of these books, the next book that I'd like to pick up is Dragon Mage by, I believe it's M.L. Spencer. I don't know very much about this book. I've heard kind of rumblings off and on. It's a self-published title about a main character. I believe his name is Arden. And it's kind of that more classic fantasy type story where he grows up in like a fishing village, then discovers that he has some latent magical abilities and goes to some kind of wizarding school or competition or something, and ultimately tries to save the world from a evil god or something along those lines. And it just sounds like a really fun time. I love classic fantasy. I love things like the Drizzt series, Lord of the Rings. I love me all of that classic fantasy. And so I thought that I would support a self-published author and kind of see what it was all about. That wraps up what I'm planning to read in January. Hop down in the comments below. Tell me what you're planning to read. I'd also just like to say I hope you guys have a great day. I'm really enjoying having these first few videos coming out and starting to meet some of the BookTube community. And I look forward to continuing to meet more and more members of the BookTube community as time goes on. And with that said, if you like this video, please feel free to like. If you want to see more bookish stuff from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you guys all again soon. Bye!